Hello, my name is Ken Kramer, and I'm an interviewer for the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And today I have the honor of interviewing Irvin Huddleston, this being May 22nd, 2007, in the main library. Our camera operator today is Dennis Daly. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. And
Thank you. Thank you for the interview. I was wondering whether I get a chance to tell my story.
Well, we're glad you're here, and so we are focusing on World War II, and so
U.S. Navy.
U.S. Navy, and so maybe you can start anywhere you like, where you think the story begins.
Well, in 1943, why they were drafting people, and so I decided to beat the rush to sign up.
Okay.
So I went down. I was a student at the old Woodward High School on Sycamore Street. I went down to the government building and signed up in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing they do, they give you a physical. And I was lucky. I weighed 124 pounds.
Wow.
And I was skinny. And the doctor from Fort Thomas, Army doctor, he examined me, and he said that since I weighed 124, he could pass me, but if I weighed less than 119, I would not go. It would fail me.
Okay.
And so I didn't want that to happen. I went on in, and I was in the Great Lakes, Company 677, and later on when we went for duty San Diego, part of us went to the Amphibious Corps, and part of them went to the USS Kitty Hawk. I was the one that got assigned to the Amphibious Corps.
Okay.
And it had to do with ship to shore, landing.
Mm-hmm.
Landing craft was the main things. And my first experience was we had to practice training,
Practice training practice. Okay.
Yeah, amphibious. They were LVPs and LCMs, and they were made by the Higgins Boat Company out of New Orleans, and the Gray Marines company that built the Gray Marine diesel.
Oh.
And
I hadn't heard that before.
But when I got when I got up to Great Lakes, they give you a test, And first amusing situation, I had a very negative attitude when I went in. I didn't want no more high school. I just wanted to get in there and do my job and get the war over. And so that's exactly what happened when I came back from my leave in July 1943. Why I was hauled before you might say a captain, Navy captain, and he inquired as to why I took my test, 150 questions. I answered 3 of them correctly, and he wanted to know why I didn't answer the rest of them. And he was furious with me, and he decided to send me on my way. And so he got red in the face, and when I told him I wanted to see action, that was the wrong word to say to him. And he says, "You'll get action." Hit his fist like that, hit that table, and I thought it was going to go right through it. He really hit it. And he started writing like this and looked up and he said, "That'll be all." So it took off. I didn't want any more to do with that. So the next day I was on the troop, on the railroad, heading through Chicago, heading for California somewhere. Didn't know where I was going. I just, California. You're going to California. And so I ended up, I started to see some things happening when we got out to the San Bernardino, California. They put the shades down and smoking light is off, you know, and we went on down past Camp Pendleton and Marine Corps Base and on into San Diego. And they had a receiving station there, and we marched down Broadway. You know, Broadway is the major street in San Diego. We marched down that thing and in the back way to our receiving station, Balboa Park. And so I spent my month or so standing guard duty. So finally, they called us from A to, I think A to G, went out first, and they ended up on the USS Kitty Hawk. That was the aircraft carrier parked there in the, and they were ship, they call them ship company, say, and the rest of us went to the destroyer base, and I can see myself standing in formation out there, and we didn't want to go to war, and we had our minds somewhere else. So they had, over across the slip there, they had some Navy women, and we were hollering, you know, and all that stuff, and they were going up, shut up, shut up. Shut up, you know. So the funnest thing about my service was that they picked you like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And the first ones was the coxswain, the guy, you know, the boatswain mate. He drove the boat, see. And so I had some. I read up on the Navy guys, and they had these whale boats that go from ship to ship, you know, and they had a coxswain stand on the back, and he did the steering on the back of those.
What was the purpose of those ships?
Yeah, it's
did they have those?
Well, to get from ship to ship, see.
Just to transport.
They didn't have us around there until we moved into the picture, see.
Okay.
And they used to have an engineer, and he would stand next to his motor right here. He would stand, you know, back and forth, and they'd ding, had a bell. The coxswain would ding, that means slow up, and ding ding means go ahead. And I thought that was fascinating. So when they called for the coxswains, the boat drivers, to move forward 2 steps, I didn't move. I just stood there. And then they said, okay, who wants to be a fireman? So I thought that would be a real thing to do, see. So we went, marched forward. We got our LVPs. That's the small boats.
What do the initials stand for?
Landing craft, vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah, it was big enough for put a Jeep in there, or 28 soldiers with their full equipment, say. And what was great about it, it had power in those gray marine diesels, and had a steel ramp in front. And there'd been many times when I ducked down behind that, say, because there was some shooting going on the beach, and you had to protect yourself. And
so you were assigned as a fireman then, right?
yeah, in the amphibians, I was signed as a fireman. I made first year, I made fireman first class. That's a step up from seaman second class, fireman first class, and then
Specifically, what did the firemen do?
fireman, the engineer. I mean, the only thing that I did see, I was in charge of the motor, the diesel. I had to keep that thing running, say, and so I didn't. They were brand new boats, and all I had to do was, when we get in on the beach, you had to work the sea strainers and get all that sand out. So you have one on this side, you flip it over and take this out and dump in the sand in the bucket, and you put that back on and flip it back and take this one off. But when you were out there, say in the bay, or you didn't have to do that. You just had to, but your responsibility was to take care of that motor, and also to lower the ramp and pull it up. So our first night, they took us out there in the bay. First night, we had to make our landing. So we had our life jacket on, everything. We were at our duty station, you know, and that was over there. And we had what they call a boat hook. He's the guy that stands up in the front and ties the boat up or pulls it in or whatever. And I stood it in the back near my motor, and I tied up the back of the boat. But here we are. We're getting ready to make our first landing. And so what they do, they have a control boat. And that control boat's got a sign that says, "Follow me," you know, on the back of it.
Yeah.
And they had a red flag and a checkered flag. And you follow, boats all follow in line. And then when we get out there to where they want us, you know, we make a left turn, line up to the one on the right, and when he took off, you take off. See, that's we watched the boat on the right, and when he started moving out, we moved out right with him, and so that lined us up for the beach. And we opened up, and once we got almost to the beach, we didn't slow down. We just went right on in there. And
You hit the sand. So.
yeah, hit the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And but you didn't leave. You lined up there, and you didn't leave till you seen the checker flag. When the officer went down to the beach, and I was lucky that I didn't have to go in the first or second wave. I went in later, you know, and there was some bombing going on. They were trying to bomb us, and the ships out there, they put their smoke things up. You know, you've seen these smokers that they put in the orange groves, and down in Florida, mm-hmm. It was the same thing. Say they covered them up so the bombers, the Japanese Betty bombers, couldn't get us. We were out there, you know, but.
So you saw some actual action.
Oh yeah, I was right there, but I wasn't up on the beach. I stayed away from it, cause that got pretty lively.
You decided to take real good care of the motor, right?
Yeah, in fact, our boat crew was assigned to another ship, Navy ship, and it was like a thing where they would let the small boats in there to repair them. It was like a Carter Hall #1, I think it was, mm-hmm. And that was there for the amphibs, the boats.
Can you name some of the places where you did see action?
The first one was in the Navy. The first one was Gilbert Islands, And like I said, I didn't get. It was the next day after the Marines went into Tawaba that we got a chance to go in the beach, and I didn't know it was going to happen, but they said we want nine crews, boats, to do a volunteer. So we went over there and we saw all this, well, a whole bay full of dead Marines.
Ooh.
And right today, it's hard to the only way I got away from that was to just keep myself busy. And now I completely forgot about that. But
For a long time.
We had a problem. We had a problem. The Marine Corps came to us, and they wanted us to get those bodies out of the water and bring them into the beach so they could put them in stretchers, put them on their ambulance and take them, and process them. And so we finally decided that we would take that steel ramp. We had a ramp in front. We could let that about halfway down, and one got on one side and one got on the other side, and we took a pole, went out there, boat hook, and hooked them in the back here, and brought them up and gently pulled them up on that ramp. And we would stack about 4 bodies there, and then we would back off and go around, and where there was a clear space further down there, we would take them into where they were waiting for us. The Marine Corps was waiting for us. And that's all we had to do is take those. And we had about eight or nine boats, and we were out there about 5 hours picking up bodies. And it was a terrible thing. I was only 18, 19 years old, and they used to tell me, and the bartender down at San Diego, he says, if he's old enough to fight for our country, why, he's old enough to drink. So I never had no problem. I had no problem drinking beer.
But I guess that was really...
and it was a good thing, because that just kind of deadened all my pains, and the only thing I had to do was be able to stand in formation the next morning. I had the same thing, If you're old, if you're able to stand up, then you're fit for duty.
But I guess, like you're saying, it was pretty hard to get those images out of your mind.
Yeah, I wanted to get that in, because a lot of these people, civilians, didn't realize what things happened. That was the first thing that woke me up. Man, I just...
The gruesome aspects of war.
Well, I was about the same age, and it could have been me,
Right.
And so but that's what happened in the Navy, that for me, and... Did you see action other places, different islands, or? Well, we went from, when we got through there at Gilbert Islands, we moved a little bit south, and there's a British called Ellis Island, and they had the Seabees came in there and put up a strip, and they moved the Army Air Corps at that time from New Guinea up there, and so they were bombing those islands out there. So they took what was left of us back to Pearl Harbor.
What do you mean, what was left of you?
Well, what was not all those guys were as fortunate as I was.
Okay.
Okay, that's why I'm talking. They took what was left of us back to Pearl Harbor, and they brought some more recruits from San Diego, and part of us went with the 24th Standard Landing Craft Unit 24, and the 26th was the new one. And the new one, they went to Saipan and Guam, and we wore green clothes like the Seabees. We didn't wear dress whites. We didn't have a white cap on. We had a purple cap. We had a dyer, you know, and those green clothes, they would blend right into the tropic, you know, yeah, and so, but then we got ready, and we left there for New Guinea. A little later, our bunch got on the ship, Honolulu, had all that stuff, ceremony, and throwing the stuff, hollering and everything, and we went down to New Guinea, and that's where we got acquainted with General MacArthur and his army. They had, one thing I will say, they had the firepower, and they had equipment, and if you can see LSTs going by for 3 days, you know you got, and you know you got equipment going into battle. And when we got there, got to the Philippines, we was going in, and we missed half the action. It was by 11 o'clock, they had these 3 battle wagons in front of us, and had the communication ship, the USS Rocky Mountain. They had all these antennas on that thing, and those 18-inch were pointed to the beach, and they were going down toward Tacloban, firing those guns on the beach. And they would, you can imagine 18-inch guns, how big of a crater they would leave in the beach. And,
yeah.
And I wouldn't want to have been in on that beach. We had another guy that was on one of the other boats, and he had 50 caliber machine guns on the back of 2 of them, and he got brave and went out there and started shooting at this bomber coming over. He was shooting at him, and that bomber come around and made a run at him.
No.
And
Wow.
I was down in the engine room. So was the boat hook. He was down there, but the coxswain was up there, and he had this steel square thing, you know, and he just ducked down, saying it went right on over, saying so.
When the bomber made the run, was it shooting?
And they had a heavy cruiser. See, we were having some trouble up on the mountain. They had a Japanese had a gun. They would roll that gun out and shoot, and then pull back into the cave. And they were giving us some trouble, shooting at us. And so this USS Honolulu heavy cruiser come in there and start firing, and they got hit with some torpedoes. And I was standing on my boat looking, and this torpedo airplane with the torpedo underneath came and went right at went right in. He shot about 2 of them into that ship, and they were leaning like this, but they saved it. They took it back to the repair station down there in the Carolinas and repaired it, you know, a hole in the side of it. And those Japs up on that mountain up there, they finally left. It was getting mighty hot around there. those Japs wanted, they got the message, and it was fairly, you know, easy. They got in their tanks and went across that, you know, lady, and up the other road, and that's...
The U.S. forces got in their tanks you're talking about now?
Yeah, and they went on over to the other side of and that's where the battle most of the battle. But we were there, and about D+4 in Lady, and they had one Japanese battle group coming through above in the streets, and they had some another one coming in through the other streets in the south, and Bull Halsey was the admiral, and he had his ships up north chasing the Japs. Here we were out there like setting ducks out there on that beach, and they brought us in, and I had my helmet and rifle. I was ready, ready to get me some Japs. They went in that night, and they were commenting. My CO, he was laughing. He said, "Man, he had that guy. He's ready. Look at him. He got his rifle." And we dug this trench. We dug a trench like L's trench, out this way and then back toward the woods. And they were going to move us back, see, from there, if the Japs came in there and tried to make a landing in front of us. They had guns down the beach, and the armed guys, they were there in force, and but nothing happened because they had a PT. You won't believe, but the PT boats saved the day. They were down there waiting for the ships coming in there, and they waited till they got up almost by them, and then they cut loose at them with their torpedoes, and they sunk about 4 or 5 of those battleships right then and there. And that is not told in all the stories. It tells about the Kincaid, Admiral Kincaid had some ships, and he came in just a little late to get them. But the Japs up on the other, between Luzon, they come through there, and they had the advantage. They could have steamed right on down there and just blew us right out of the jungles, but it didn't happen. They got scared and turned around and took off. They got a couple of our baby back, some of the baby flat tops. That's one of those ones where they just take a ship and put a landing strip on top of it, say, and
Miniature aircraft carriers.
Miniature. And don't believe that those Navy pilots wasn't trained for that. Not too many of them went off into the drink. Most of them come in there and they'd hook on that resting wire and
Wow, it's like trying to land on
it was really interesting to watch those. When we were going overseas, they were doing some practice runs, They would turn those ships into the wind, and then they would come in and take off and come around and land. But getting back to this going across the equator, why they had what they call polywogs and the initiation of the ones that been through it,
Mm-hmm.
So the night before, all the shellbacks, that's the ones that been through it, we got a chance to work on the polywogs. We had a boatswain mate on the ship, and he thought, he was all this and that, but he was a polywog. And so we had the boats on the side of the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a chain and a little anchor, and they were whipping if he didn't do it, and he was swinging this chain around, and they were saying, "You see Davy Jones yet?" "No." "Well, keep swinging." And I had a friend. He was you would call him 5'2", and he weighed about 200-300 pounds. And all the polywogs that got see, they got after him and got him up on the forecastle, and he got one of these hoses. They're brass hoses, see, on the end. And he says, "Okay, come on." He would hit him in the head, knock him down. He was up there, and we come up, see, the shellbacks, and we come up there, and we really had a pitched battle right down there with the pollywogs. Most of them were, and even the executive officer, he was a pollywog. And so when he came through the next day, why, we had a big Swede, and he had a canvas bag, a long canvas thing, and had it soaked in water, and it was almost like a baseball bat. And he knocked executive officer. We hit him, and he turned around to talk to me, tell me that I shouldn't do that. And about that time, he hit him and knocked him down. That big Swede hit him, knocked him down, and he decided he wasn't going to argue no more. He took off into the hatchway. So there was serious business out there, fighting a war, but there's also
some comic relief.
Funny, yeah. It was really fun because we had King Neptune in his court.
What was that?
King Neptune in his court. See,
yeah.
That's what it was all about. See,
yeah.
You could be a shellback until you bow down before him. They took us, and when we went over the first time, and they locked us up in a compartment downstairs in the ship, and they let us in there and turn the water on.
Oh my gosh.
And it kept getting deeper and deeper. Got clear up to here before they finally got rescued, got out of there. I thought they were going to drown the pollywogs, shellbacks. So there was nothing, we all went through it, and there was nothing about that, And
Pretty serious play there.
Yeah, it was serious play. And
so where were you when the war ended?
when the war ended, that was in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting in the movie. See, we had movies about every night on the in our camp there, and we were sitting there waiting for the movie to begin. And so I got some pictures to show you there. And they got up and they said, "There's going to be no more movies tonight." See, I got a special announcement. It says MacArthur just announced that the Japs have surrendered.
Whoa.
And coconuts were flying all over the place. He was throwing coconuts. And the army guys over in the Tacloban in the city over there, they had a 6x, which is a 6-wheel army truck, and they were going down through the town hollering, shouting, the war's over, the war's over. And all the ships were out there pointing their guns up, shooting.
Whoa.
And one army guy, Air Force, he says that he was glad he wasn't out there that night because he would got shot down for sure. Those guys were shooting for joy. And so next day, just normal things, and then we seen these 3 ships come in, and we said, oh, something's going to happen. So we were processed. They just picked us up, took us out there and put them on the ships. And 21 days later, we were in San Francisco in Treasure Island. And one thing I'd like to say is when we got back to the States, the Navy, they treated us royalty. There was a hotel down there in San Francisco, and they had it set up on the second floor of that hotel, they had it set up for entertainment. Down at one end of the place was like a little, they moved all the beds out and everything, and that was a dance hall. See, and they had about 3 or 4 rooms, and they had the bathtubs out there. They were filled up with beer and whiskey. And that was the wrong thing to do, because I was in the mood to celebrate. The war's over, I'm going home. See, so here we are, drinking. The war's over, drink up. I got to that second room, that's all the further I went. And hey, wake up. They were doing this. Wake up, boats, wake up.
You survived the war, but you almost killed
but
yourself.
I didn't know I was going to survive the night. I was drunk, real drunk. And so they pulled me back over in the corner of the room there and put a blanket over top of me. And they said, he'll be all right in the morning. He says, we'll wake him up and take him down, give him some coffee and everything. That's what they did. My 2 friends that was with me, and they woke me up, took me down, got some coffee, and and then then things begin. I said, I got to get back there. I'm going on leave. I better get. I said, yeah, you better get back. I said, come with us. We're going back to Treasure Island. So we went back, and I got there just in time. It was, I was in no shape to go on R&R, but I made it back, and I got down there and I stuck my hand in the window just as the boatswain mate. He was going to shut the window and go home. He said, yeah, I'll check. And so he went over and got my leave paper. He says, here, sign here. He says, now you're on leave. I got my train ticket and everything, and I had some friends down in Los Angeles, and I got on the train and went down there, and that's how I got interested in going to college, because they have a nice school down there called, you'll see it New Year's Day, every New Year's Day, Pasadena City College, and they had these big white buildings, and my friend took me around, showed me around, and I thought it was great. And they teach a little different out there than they do here. Here it's just lectures. There it's like a teacher comes in and puts the stuff on the blackboard, and I could understand it, see. So that's what happened to me later.
You went to college and got your degree.
I went to college, got my degree, and I went and got, since I was a veteran, I went to Aerojet. Aerojet was just out there in Azusa, California. They were just beginning to get the JATO. They were building a system. You put these things on the plane and help to lift, like a rocket,
Yeah.
So that's where this all started, at the Edwards Air Force Base. And instead of being here today, here in Cincinnati, I would have been out there in Owens Valley. Owens Valley, see? I probably got married, which I'm not married today, but I would have probably got married, and if the Korean War hadn't come along. It's been that way ever since. It's just seemed like everything's all messed up when I didn't. But later in life, I was able to get interviewed for a good job, sales rep for a large company out in North Carolina, and I was making something like all the way from $3,600 a month to $5,000-6,000. I was a traveling salesman. And why I did so good is because I that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, was be a salesman and serve, go in the stores, sell stuff. It was a real challenge for me.
Well, that's good. Is there anything about your World War II experience that we haven't covered that you wanted to mention?
Well, now, you've been listening to me here, and you say, well, he was a wild seaman. I was. Yeah, I was. And so just before, I think in 1948, I was in college out there, and just before, I had 2 years still, so we had a bunch of people from the church, and in that church there was a couple people that rode motorcycles. So I thought, well, maybe that would be a wild thing to do, ride motorcycle. Yeah. And it's nice out there, nice and warm and everything. And so I went, got me a English motorcycle, and I met some more friends from Caltech. That's a school, out there. You've heard Caltech, and so we would go out after church. We would go out and ride, and we had one guy that he had a Harley Davidson flathead. It was a big job, and mine was small, and so was the other ones. And he would roar down the highway, and then we would come out over the top and down, and he would holler, come on, we're going to Lake Arrowhead or Big Bear Lake up in the mountains. And then we would sometimes go down to the beach on our motorcycle, ride as a group, So,
but the World War II experience, I just wanted to finish up with that. Is there anything that we haven't covered?
No, that's about it.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm
I was through a lot, and I had more to come in the Army Air Corps. And when I went out to college, that's where I ended up. We had a guy that was in the armored thing of the whole thing, the planes, and they were anxious to get more people in there, and they tricked me into. They said, "Will you come down to Long Beach? We'll take you a plane ride." So I thought well, I'd like to do that. See, get up in the plane, see around what everything was. And so that's how I ended up.
One thing led to another, and
I ended up with the Long Beach Reserves.
Wow.
B-26 outfit. And so everything was okay. We did our training and everything, and then when went out just before we got called up, went on a mission, they called it, when you go up. And we went up to Owens Valley, what I was telling you, and that's where Lake Edwards is up there. But this guy, he wanted to show us his cabin up in the mountains. So here we go. And the only way you get in there was to drop the left wing down like this and go in like that, because you couldn't get in flying straight in. So you had to go in there and come around and come out. And I was on a B-26, they have the pilot and co-pilot. And they have a jump seat right behind the co-pilot. And you got a window here, and you look out on the wing, and you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's he going to do now? And we were circling. I thought, oh, something's going to happen. Circle like that, And all of a sudden he straightened that thing out, pulled the nose down, and we went down. And I was like this, and I looked out the window, and all I could see was cattle with their tails up in the air, and they were trying to get away. And I looked out the back, and the smoke, the sand, there was, you know, it was coming out the back. And I looked over here, and we were down at top of the telephone poles. And I told him, I said, this is my last ride.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't on that. Listen, I think we need to finish up the interview.
So I came out as a motor machinist, third class, petty officer.
Great.
I learned a lot when I was in there, and I kind of got myself straightened out, and with the attitude of going into reserves again, I was
sounds like
positive.
You changed a lot while you were in there. And I want to thank you again for coming down here today and being willing to share your story, but especially for your willingness to serve.
I want to thank God, and because I think He was watching over me, and the people here in Cincinnati were rooting for me.
Sure.
I think
rooting for you and praying for you, I'm sure.
I seen that sign down at the terminal. It said, "Welcome home, veterans."
Wow.
That was my crowning joy, because I had a guy that was in the taxi, and he was going to Avondale, and he took me home.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, he took me home. I didn't have to pay for that ride. It was a free ride.
Yeah, everybody was behind our military. Listen, thanks again. I really appreciate your coming down.